Welcome to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss the unidentified, the unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies, and much more. Starring your host and co-host, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, and Jason Sledgehammer I. Petro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny Nicasio.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 105.1 New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. Remember to like us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. Happy Thursday, guys.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, one more week, guys. I hope you had a great day.
Got my coffee ready.
I got my Hello Gorgeous mug. Okay. That's for all you gorgeous people out there.
Very nice.
I hope you're having a good day so far. It's Thursday. Friday's tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. This week seemed to start off kind of slow, but it really picked up the pace towards the end here. So bring on the weekend.
Definitely. Yes, bring on the weekend.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed that more UFO sightings have been posted to the MUFON.com. And I go in there and I look at all the stuff that they see. And as you remember, a few months ago, before the Senate hearings on the disclosed information regarding the UFOs that dive into water and then they shoot back up into the sky. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, sure do.
And we discussed that a couple different times. Well, last night I was watching Debbie Ziegelmeyer. I hope I didn't screw her name up because you know that. I have a record. I'm going to have to break that. But I was watching her videos and I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And I just want to let you know that after, I do want to tell you that the more I watch them, the more I think maybe that she's onto something. And she believes that the underground water bases, there are underground water bases, alien bases. And she has a new book coming out too this month. And lucky for us and you guys listening, we have her on the show this evening. She's a successful entrepreneur diver. She does scuba diving. She's a paranormal investigator, a lecturer in Missouri. Among her paranormal research efforts, she has spent the last decades, I guess maybe more, looking into UFO phenomena. And she's the state director of the Mutual UFO MUFON, and that's Missouri chapter. And she's the head of the MUFON Dive Team, which I think is so awesome. Can't wait to talk to her about that. And she's a member of the MUFON Board of Directors. She teaches underwater UFO search and recovery. She's appeared on as a volunteer archeologist on the Syfy station, Roswell Crash Startling New Evidence, and NBC's Sci-Fi Investigate Roswell. And I'm sure there's 100 more things that she has done. So without further ado, we are going to welcome Debbie. Welcome to Chasing Prophecies. Welcome back. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, Debbie.
Welcome back, Debbie. What can I say? We had you back in July.
Oh, she's muted.
She's muted. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see why she's muted. I have her in there.
It might be on her end.
Debbie, you might be muted.
Now am I unmuted?
There we go.
Yes,
Hey. Welcome
back. Welcome back. We had you in July when we had the panel while we discussed the Roswell incident, which was very interesting. So, Debbie, since you had a time to digest all that what happened last month, and before we get started,
all this hair.
You have a beautiful head of hair. What's your conclusion to this? Because we didn't get we heard what Joe said about it, and we heard what Tom Carey said. So before we get into, dive deep into the underground alien bases, what do you say about that? Roswell.
Well, about Roswell.
Do you think? I'm sure you. Well, then let me have you talk and tell us, because I'm not going to screw that up.
I definitely think there was a crash. And in fact, July, I believe it was 7th and 8th of 1947, there were sightings over Catalina Island off California. And in fact, that right around that couple weeks, starting just a couple weeks prior to the Roswell incident, there were sightings that were going on, multiple across the whole country. And as far as actually having a crash in Roswell actually occurring, yeah. I talked to a lot of witnesses there who, they said they saw something, explosion in the sky. I talked to the Brazel family members. I talked to the granddaughter, Fawn Fritz, and she said she remembered that Granddaddy had seen creatures. He described them as creatures. She also told us that Granddaddy didn't get a brand new pickup truck. There were a lot of rumors going on. They did hold him for 5 days. Why would they hold this man for 5 days? And, he was the foreman of the Foster Ranch. Went out there and found debris. And, why would they hold this man for finding a weather balloon? They used to find weather balloons all the time. And in fact, I think it was 2007 or 8. I was driving down there, and the weather balloon went right over the debris field. I mean, I have it on video. So there's so much that, I could go on forever and ever. And you can tell behind me, there's probably a whole shelf of Roswell books.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
There were too many people that saw too many things, and just to have this made up. And the cover up was way too big. In fact, let's see, it was Nancy Easley Johnston, that was one of the archaeology volunteers in 2002 when I did the first archaeology dig. Her daddy was the person that cordoned off Easley. There was Captain or Colonel Easley, I believe, cordoned off the area a quarter mile. They walked shoulder to shoulder, gathering up pieces of a weather balloon. I mean, really, that's why I said, well, Tom Carey has been investigating Roswell. He's got a lot of books on it. And that's why I said, Tom, I want to hear your take on this, because between him and Don Schmidt, I think they've interviewed over 150 witnesses. I mean, I've probably interviewed 25, 30, but I met Glenn Dennis, who told me the story. He sat me down in his office way back, I think it was 2002, and even told me about the nurse that had drawn on napkin, had drawn the alien face and the hands with 4 fingers, and then had taken it, showed it to him, said that's what she saw, and then she lit it a fire and put it in a glass of water. I talked to Walter Hott. I knew both of them very well, and we would, my brother and I would travel down to Roswell every 4-day holiday week, and we'd be there 3-4 times a year, and we were always invited into their office. They were both wonderful gentlemen. So it would be a lot to do about nothing if something didn't happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's it.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So let's dive deep into the UFO, into the ocean. Okay. You mentioned in one of your YouTube videos that 1 in 5 UFO sightings are water related.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, I've been, surprisingly enough, I was not that big of a water person, and I kind of got drug into it. I think maybe right place at the right time. Since I had become a MUFON field investigator in 2001, I became a scuba diver just right after 9/11, the weekend afterward. But it's such a vast amount of the earth. 70% of the earth is water, and it just seemed to me this would be the place to hide, especially as much diving as I've done. I mean, I've been went all the way from open water diver to instructor. I've dove all over the Caribbean. I dove in Alaska, but I found that with all that vast amount of the earth that's covered by water, and I thought this is a perfect hiding place. So I started doing my research in that area. And the more and more I researched it, the more intrigued I became, because I was finding that 1 in 5 of these sightings were in and around water. Now, that's not just necessarily oceans and seas, but this is rivers, lakes. Right here in Missouri in 1973, we had they call it the Bushy Creek incident, which was actually a sighting right there in 1973 in Piedmont, where a craft, Gene Coleman, was very young woman at the time, was coming back from a party and saw a craft hovering over Clearwater Lake. I mean, that's about an hour and 30 minutes from my house. And I remember going there as a teenager and swimming in that lake. It was a great swimming, skiing lake. So I started researching it farther. Well, my family lives in California. I started looking up Catalina Island sightings, and not just the 1947 sightings, but these things have gone on and on and on. I mean, there are still sightings. And the funny thing about it was I went in May. I went back. I had some family business to attend to, and I went to the Wyland studio that's right there in Laguna Beach. And we were looking at the artwork, and I said, you're right here on the ocean. Have either of you ladies, that there were the ladies, the salespeople there, and I said, have either of you ladies seen any UFOs? And they both had. They said just sometimes if they worked later and it was dark, they both of them, one a couple different times, one of them at least once had looked out over the back, overlooking the ocean in the direction of Catalina Island, and had seen these balls of light dancing in the sky. They said they weren't planes. They said, we know what planes look like. So all you have to do is go someplace where there's water, a massive amount of water, and talk to a local. We went to, I went on the MUFON cruise. And when we got to Cozumel, our tour guide was telling us, he said, why have all of you got UFO shirts on? And we said, are you kidding me? Do you know who we are? And he said, about 20 years ago, he said, in fact, right there. And he showed us we're right off of the ocean in Cozumel. He said, right there, a silver metallic ball came up from, he said, that little island that's right there, which was just a stone throw from the beach. He said it came up out of the water and started following his car all the way home. His cousin was behind him and also saw it. And he said, this was about 20 years ago. He says, I've never forgot it. And he said, all you have to do is talk to any of the area fishermen, and they've all had sightings. So with that, I started going back through log books. I mean, even before Columbus, I think it was 1067 was the first that I found documented water sighting. But I believe it was October 11th of 1492, Columbus had a UFO sighting. There's sightings that go back centuries that are logged by ship captains. So, I mean, that is the place. And then look at all what was just been released by the government. It's Navy pilots that are seeing these.
Sean, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's quite interesting. As I was researching for tonight's show, I came across, they're called bloops. Have you heard of those before? The bloops that are in the ocean over there in the Pacific Ocean?
Oh, yeah. Yes, okay. I
have. So I kind of was looking more into that situation. And the more I looked at it, the more I read, the more I listened to on YouTube, it is very possible that could be an alien base down in that area where NOAA is, I guess they're part of the government, and they're not going to tell you that there's alien bases down there. But it kind of really intrigued me when a friend of mine told me about the bloops. And so as I was researching, I came across this, have you ever heard of H.P. Lovecraft? He's an author. Back in 1926, he wrote a book called Cthulhu. It was a little short story that he wrote, and it was part of an underground city in the Pacific Ocean. I don't know. I wondered if you ever heard of that stuff or not.
No, I did research. I found a lot of excerpts, Psalms from the Bible. I also found ancient Japanese stories about a lady that I believe they said her skin was so white it was almost bluish, that she floated in some kind of a strange craft onto the shore, and they took her in. There's two different versions to the story. One of them was that she stayed there. She had the inside of the craft, the boat had some very strange things inside of it. It was almost like it had windows. And this is several hundred years ago. And they kept her and pushed the boat back out. And another version of it was they put her back on the boat and pushed her back out. So stories, I've done a lot of research, but I never saw that. There's just so much out there. It's just incredible, especially that has to do with water.
Jason, do you have anything on that? Or want to comment?
Speaking of the water and UFOs, something I was thinking about that you may know is, do the UFOs prefer like salt water or more of like a freshwater area? When it comes to having their bases and everything, is there like a difference between that one over the other?
I don't think it makes any difference. Clearwater Lake, of course, is freshwater. The ocean, you hear about, Shag Harbor,
Right.
the incident where there was a crash in Shag Harbor. I believe as far as maybe base wise, depends on the agenda. If you're going to look for a place to where you're going to hide, and a base could be underwater, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a craft. They could have built something underwater, and over centuries, they could have been there for absolutely for centuries. Especially with the research that I've done, where you could have a physical base, you could have a wormhole, you could have a craft that can move. So there's I think a lot of it too. We try and rationalize what people are seeing or try and investigate what they're seeing, but we humans have a bad habit of categorizing. So.
Right.
Just because you see an alien come out of the water, you say, "Ooh, alien base." There's a lot of different aliens. It could be a physical base. It could be in a mountain. I believe there's Moon Mountain off of Catalina Island. I believe there's something in there that maybe the mountain opens up and they go in. I believe other areas. Alaska is very active for bases, but some of the places where things have come in and out of the water, I think there could be a base in one place that's one species, and it could actually be a wormhole in another place that's a different species, because there are different species of aliens that are being seen in the same general area, especially Puerto Rico. Oh my gosh, if you go on Jorge Martin's website, he's the foremost expert on Puerto Rico. I spoke with him, and he said that there's a wormhole that comes opened up into the sky, and it's on his website.
Good.
And a craft, he says, craft come down and enter the water right by ponds. And then he said they go back in. I mean, it's on his website. So, I mean, he's been investigating there for years. So, I mean, the Caribbean is a fantastic place to hide.
Nice. Do you think that a lot of these aliens that are underwater, like they reside in like the depths of the ocean that we are unable to get to, like currently, so like it's harder to detect them? Is that a possibility?
If you could travel light years, or you've got the capability to travel maybe warp time or bend time, or maybe come back in time, this could be us. Some of them could be us. Some of them could be coming. Basically, the technology is that it doesn't really matter how deep or whether it's salt water. I don't think I ever answered the other question, whether it's salt or it's fresh. Carl Feint and I had a conversation. He was a wonderful man. I was sad when he passed, and he seemed to believe that the electromagnetic field that is around all these craft that we hear about, that gives them the ability to enter and leave the Earth's atmosphere at high rates of speed, and also enter the water and move through the water at high rates of speed, because this electromagnetic field is covering the craft. So the craft never actually comes in contact with the water or with our atmosphere. So
it's a barrier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would answer the question of the salt water. And as far as the depths, if you're going to try and hide, you're going to hide in the depths. But let's just say that, what's H2O? Hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, so maybe they're using the hydrogen as a form of a fuel, and they're replenishing their ships, like NASA used hydrogen, went all the way back to Mercury, was using hydrogen for their fuel cells. So you would go into a deeper body of water, let's say a river or a lake, and you sift things out. Maybe another species just needs some type of food, plankton, kind of like whales. How whales will filter through and they'll eat basically ingest plankton. Maybe they're filtering through and they're getting some kind of organic
What about
nourishment.
salt? Maybe they need salt.
They
There
might.
was-
Yeah, maybe.
They may need salt too.
There
So
was
that would be depending on what it was, what the agenda is probably the depth of water. Also, probably if you're trying to hide, maybe a lot of it too, whatever is available. So
definitely.
I mean, if they travel at a high rate of speed, and let's just say you see this craft that's over Missouri, if they can go like lightning and make it to the ocean in Florida,
is there any kind of is there anything that we have that could go to these depths of the water? Like, as you said, only how much percentage was it? 5% that we've actually.
Less than 5%, according to NOAA, that we've actually explored our oceans. I mean, they go down miles. There's that was in my book, how many trenches. It's amazing how many trenches there are, deep, deep trenches that we just don't have the capability.
We don't have what was that movie when we were kids? There was like legions under the water. We don't have any
20 legions.
Yes, we don't have anything that can go. They haven't invented
Too much
anything.
pressure under there, yeah.
Well, we've been underwater for a long time with Kong Shelf, with the scientific bases underwater. Jacques Cousteau, and then now his grandson actually has got a place off of the Florida Keys. But they're only 30, 40, 50, 60 feet deep. Some of these, they're not that deep. We also have bases. We've got underwater bases for our submarines. We found those out with the Russians when the submarines started to have problems. There's closed down Russian, closed down Chinese underwater submarine bases. And,
wow.
And it makes you wonder why these things are closed down. Has the technology gone that much farther past that they're able to go deeper? And these ones that are fairly shallow and detectable by Google Earth or a plane fly over or whatever, they've gone more into the depths. But as far as going deep, 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 was it not Grant Cameron? It was Cameron.
Yeah.
Cart Cameron.
No, it's the guy he's a underwater.
Well, he went down in a few years ago in just like a bullet that went down into the Mariana Trench, very deep in the water. But he was just barely down there and then just came back up. You can't really go at depth for very long.
And tell us how. I mean, I was also reading about you being a scuba diver, like you in your bio. How did you get into that, and how did you start the MUFON Dive Team?
Tom Ferrario and I did way back. We were working with Ted Phillips, and Tom has now taken over in place of Ted Phillips. I guess it's SIU team, I believe. But his Marley Woods team. But we got into discussion one night over a campfire investigating Marley Woods with Ted. And Ted was really into caves. And we started thinking, what about underwater caves? And then we started thinking, what about underwater? And before we knew it, Tom and I were running, I believe it was back in 2003, we held the first underwater UFO search and recovery class in Rolla, Missouri, in a quarry. That was great. We put a 10-foot in diameter satellite dish with legs on it and put it underwater at 30 feet. And I mean, so we had a whole weekend. I believe we did 4 dives. But I mean, that was the premise behind it too, was that when you try and dive for something, if you're looking for something, we took them all down 30 feet and told them ahead of time, you're going to descend down this line, go to the UFO, swim around it, then compass your way back to shore. And we hovered underwater and waited for every one of them to come back, because the metal from the satellite dish, it caused a false north. And so everybody ended up back with us. Their compass just turned right around. So we thought that's one way to find something that has crashed underwater something large
Yeah.
in metal, you could take your compass for that. But a lot of what that we did for small pieces, we trained in how to do recovery of smaller things. So I wish we could be doing more of it. I've done a couple dives looking for things, but everything is really at depth. So we're looking more to sonar, mini subs. I do have one of my investigators, Chuck Frieden from Columbia, is a mini sub captain. So we're ready to go underwater. There's stuff going on right now, Hudson Valley, that we would love to get and take a look at that. There's some lakes in the Kansas City area we'd love to get in. What we found out, our biggest problem is a lot of these lakes where things are coming in and out of happen to be reservoirs that water is coming from, and they don't want divers in there.
Oh, okay.
Why is that?
They get
Why
a
is that?
little. Well, if you're getting your drinking water from this, and then you got divers in there, I was certified. I was certified the weekend after 9/11, and the first thing the FBI did was come and pull all the files from the dive instructors for the last year, wondering if maybe these people that we were going to go underwater and bomb dams or, what? I mean, I get suspicious. And if you've got divers going underwater in an area that they're not usually there, people get really suspicious, especially with things that, the way the world is now.
Right.
If they're traveling, these crafts are traveling 1,000 miles an hour, and why aren't there any sonic booms?
Well,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
that was Carl Feint's theory. Was it the electromagnetic field around these craft that they're able to enter and leave and enter the atmosphere without causing a sonic boom? And then also I spoke to a couple different people that have been on nuclear subs, and they talk about fast movers, and these things go across the sonar just at a high rate of speed. They could travel through water faster than our capabilities. And it's probably because this electromagnetic field around them, they can just skip through rather than, trying to push your way through water.
It's almost like a force field kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah.
John, I don't know if you know John Venture. He used to be a MUFON director for Pennsylvania. When I was writing my trilogy From the Sky, one of the things we talked about, for my third book, what could prevent these crafts, like you said, a barrier? Could it have something like he said, boron covering? I don't know. What do you feel about that? Like it has a boron covering. What do you think about that?
The craft?
Yes.
Possibly. If he was able to find some kind of evidence of a craft having a boron covering, might be, but then you've got several different species. It might be something from somebody else. It's hard to tell. We in Roswell, we found back in 2002, I was sifting through and found just a little silver metallic piece. It was like the Golden Grail. We went over there and out in the desert in the heat. We're sifting.
John would understand that, huh, John?
Wow, not even a tree, to go behind for a little shade it was my brother had it analyzed through his work. They had a piece of equipment that could take it down to microns, and it was really pure aluminum with a little bit of silicon. The dirt particles on it had titanium, but only in the dirt particles.
That's strange. Only in the
Yeah,
dirt particles.
and I spoke to Stanton Friedman right after we found it, and he said that he had reports because it was just this little piece of triangle, and it was really flimsy. And I had a lot of people say, "Would you try and tear it?" I went, "Well, no. I don't want to try and tear something and destroy what I found." The first thing I did in this heat was I put a finger lock on it because the wind was blowing, and I'm out in the middle of the desert, 75 miles from the town of Roswell, and I put a little envelope, marked it, and sealed it up so it could be analyzed. But Stanton had said that he had reports that some alien beings, witnesses, had seen their suits were a bunch of little tiny triangles all put together.
Oh,
You know, just this little, that was the
Wonder
pattern.
why that would be.
Well, I guess just the pattern of a whatever it was wearing, and that they were just all these, the pattern was little triangles. And I thought, well, that's really kind of interesting.
Could even be like sort of like a fish's skin. You know how that, do you ever
Right.
know-
Like scales.
Well, what about,
Scales.
like scales? Well, what about, okay, so we're talking about underground alien bases and aliens. And you have the mythology of mermaids, mermen.
Right.
Maybe those are species of aliens, or maybe they ship-shaped that they can swim underground and then they can walk on land. Maybe that they could do something like that. I never thought of that with the underground bases, because people, I mean, for centuries these fishermen have seen these creatures that
Right.
they're part man and part fish.
I saw a special on that maybe 2-3 years ago. Somebody had video of a mermaid. They were down really deep, and this thing came across the screen. Then I heard that it was faked, but I don't know. You know, if you discover something and someone wants to cover it up, the first thing they do is yell fake, and everybody backs off and goes, "Ah, well." But the Russians released a lot of I guess their Freedom of Information Act. They released a lot of documents, and in those, and then also a book. I ordered a book about Russian UFO sightings, and in both places, I've through the documents and in the book, which maybe the book probably got them from the documents. There was talk about Lake Baikal, that there were, I believe it was 4 military divers. They were training, and they were down at about 250 feet. So, I mean, that's high-tech diving, because a recreational diver is, you know, we're limited to 130. I've been to about 145, just kind of through default in Cozumel. But they were down there and they saw this group of aliens. I believe it was 5 or 6, but they said they were tall, about 10 foot tall. They had something in their mouth like a breathing apparatus, but they really didn't have a tank, you know. And so they didn't have the kind of equipment that the divers had, and they were 10 foot tall, really shiny. So it kind of spooked these divers. They went back up. And in fact, I think it was 4 aliens and 6 divers is what it was. The divers went back up, and a couple days later, some brilliant official decided that they were going to send these guys back down with a net. So they go back down at depth with a net.
They're going.
Right?
Coming to get you.
They're going to bring one of them up.
Oh, the poor
And-
little
Oh my
creatures.
gosh! So, the 10 foot tall.
Oh,
So
jeez.
they
With a
go
net.
down there,
Like,
and
come here, come on, just jump in this net real quick.
It's terrible.
well, one of the divers approached with this net and went to fling it over this alien. And when they did, the alien put his hands out like that, and the divers immediately went from 250 feet to the surface.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness
So
gracious.
decompression sickness. Well, the Russians only had 2 decompression chambers available,
Oh no.
and one was
Oh, wow.
broken. So the 2 lowest ranking members were just allowed to die. And they took the
Wow.
other 4 and they shoved them in this one decompression chamber. And I believe then 3 of them passed away. Only 1 survived. And from what the article had said was that you're not allowed to dive at depth anymore. They stopped the training in that lake and a nearby lake. And then I also came across a story of in the mountains, found in a cave, were odd-shaped, 10-foot tall skeletal bones of something that looked alien. So the Russians have 10-foot tall alien species, apparently, that can dive at depth, live at depth. Apparently, there's some kind of a base down there in the area. I did a lot of research, and it seemed like Russia, that in and around Russia, there, I guess maybe the cold water. I don't really know.
Maybe.
But
Have you ever talked to some Russian UFOlogists about it?
no, I the one that I had that wrote the book has since passed away. So no, I really have. I would assume that they'd speak Russian, which I don't. I had a hard enough time understanding that Mr. Martin because he had an accent. And then I asked him, I said, how come your book on Puerto Rico, you only have one book that's in English? And I said, your magazine, I would love to take your magazine. They're all in Spanish. So he did put out one book.
No me hablo español.
Yeah, I never learned.
No, I think
have trouble with English.
If it was me, even though I would find an interpreter and try and find a ufologist over there to try to compare the stories, what they think.
I started researching Russia for the book, so I haven't researched it for that long. Maybe 3 years ago, I think actually I started researching, and it was probably because all over the news it was always. If you remember the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's been Russia, Russia, Russia. That's all you hear about. Russia's, and every time anything happens anywhere in the world, the Russians are behind it. And I got so tired of hearing Russia, 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 and I thought, oh, I wonder what kind of sightings. I could have researched China or, just about any country, but Russia was on the mind. And so I started looking through, ordering books and looking online, freedom of information. And I just started going into the, more in the Russian, because there's a lot going on in the UK, in Wales, and in Scotland. But that's kind of the reasoning behind. Yeah, I'd love to interview somebody in Russian.
That'd be cool. I think that would be nice.
When you interview all these the people that you interview, is there like a certain way that you differentiate like who's telling the truth compared to like maybe somebody's just looking for, like, hey, I saw this, I saw that, but they really didn't, but they just want to get like recognized kind of thing. You know what I mean?
That's where research comes in. I believe last I looked, it's somewhere around 900 MUFON investigation cases that I've worked on. That's not counting stuff I've done on my own. And you get to, after a while, it's like a police officer. There's signals. You can tell right off if a police officer goes up to a car on a traffic stop and they've heard every single story.
Right.
How many times? Usually a big giveaway is a witness will have pictures and they don't want to give you a copy. They think they're going to make $1 million. And I went,
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've been in this for 20 years. There's no money in this. I mean, you all know that you're not going to get rich.
Right.
I have a picture of a craft that, 3 little craft that I took off of a cruise ship. I have no idea. I've since found 2 other cases. That was in 2006. I took that off of Royal Caribbean. 2018, someone else took the same thing, almost in the same area, off of Royal Caribbean. And I have one of my investigators 5 years ago, his daughter and her husband went to, I believe he said Ireland, and they saw something hovering over the lake. Same thing. But I think the picture will end up in my book, I hope. But
yeah, absolutely.
I do have one more question for you, and I'll let you go. What if you had the opportunity and an alien you stood in front of an alien? What would you do?
What would I do if I stood in front of an alien?
I come in peace.
No, really.
Honestly, I would probably just stand there and wait to see why this alien was standing there in front of me.
Okay.
Obviously, for a reason. If you're let's say outside and an alien walks up and approaches you, I would probably wait to see what this creature wanted. If it wanted to communicate, if I wanted me back on its ship, I wouldn't run.
Mars attacks.
But I think that's what I think. I would just stand back and analyze and wait to see what the next step was. And then I guess if the next step was, if I got motion to go aboard the ship, I think I'd go. I know I would go. It's probably not the smartest thing to do. I told people that. I said, don't be, be careful what you wish for. You don't know who or what is out there. And there's people out there taking flashlights and flashing them up into the sky. Then what are you going to do if somebody comes back down?
Like, oh,
we have sky watches once in a while, and they're saying, okay, at a certain time, everybody shine their flashlight up. And I said, what if they actually show up?
Yeah, seriously.
And they said, well, that'd be really cool. And I go, yeah, but what if they don't leave? What if now you've attracted this creature and they're going to visit you? They're going to abduct. I just rather play caution, than throw caution to the wind.
You don't want to antagonize them. Well,
no, you don't know. And I mean, it could be a creature that would be a being that was friendly, and it could be one that maybe not so much.
A little hostile.
It could be somebody that says, greetings, welcome to my planet, or welcome to my ship. So it could be another one it's a cookbook.
It might not be like Close Encounters.
No, it might not be like Close Encounters. What was that, the day the Earth stood still?
Yeah.
Or was that...
There's so many of them.
Right? Oh my gosh, yeah.
What I want to know is the Atlantis, the lost city of Atlantis. Now, what if that really isn't? Maybe it's still there, and it's not really lost. And these creatures or these crafts, these UFOs that are diving in, are a part of that civilization that's still. Maybe it's still there, and we just haven't found it. It's so deep down that we can't find it. That could be it too. We don't. I mean, you don't know. What do you think? Could it be part of Atlantis, or is that just a little fairy tale?
Oh, I don't know. I think
fairy tale.
I think Atlantis, existed, but I think it sunk with a tsunami, and it's a matter of where. There's people that said, well, Atlantis was in the Caribbean, and then they're saying that it was. Oh gosh, where's another place?
Well, do you think it's connected to
Solomon
the
Island?
Bermuda Triangle?
Bermuda Triangle. Everybody talks about the Bermuda Triangle. There are several triangles. There's the Alaskan Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle. There's a triangle right off Japan that's the same way, that ships go in and they don't come out.
Well, have any of these UFO sightings, or these crafts that go into the water, they've been seen in one of these locations? Do you know of?
Oh, well, the Bermuda Triangle is Miami, Bermuda, and I believe just a little bit on the other side of, I believe, Puerto Rico. So absolutely, yes. The Caribbean is a big area for UFO sightings. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I mean, that's...
What if there's a reason everything's disappearing? Ooh.
Well, like Alaska, too. I did a couple of episodes of Alaska Triangle, and actually got to go to Alaska and got to go scuba diving in Alaska. Oh, that was phenomenal. But I talked to locals there, and they said, well, there was there was a Loch Ness monster that was going by in this one area. And I talked to one of the local fishermen, and he said, it was they followed a submarine in, and here it is, a bay in Alaska, a little town of Valdez. These fishermen had followed a Russian submarine that had come right into the bay. Oh, wow. And that was a periscope.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, I thought, oh my gosh.
Oh, we thought it was Nessie.
But then I also talked to people that said that there are craft. They're watching these lights just coming in and out of the water. I started doing research about what was in the water in that area. I mean, there's some areas over by let's see, Prince William Sound. There are so many boats that are down in that sound. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I went through, I did research for months. Every time I found anything, I'd go to all the websites. I've got them on Google Earth, all marked, everything, all the ships that have gone down. Why are so many things sinking right there? I know some ships where I went diving, there was a dock down and they had to do with an earthquake. Mm-hmm. But there's, and why is HARP there? There's really. Just north of Ketchikan, there's 2 different HARP installations. They've also got just a little bit north of that our military base, and they're putting coatings on submarines and testing acoustical. So you can't ping anymore. Sonar, they're going to be stealth. But with all that going on, and then people, I mean, the people, an unbelievable amount of people disappear every year in Alaska. They just go off. Now, some of the locals said, okay,
it's a hot spot.
They said they're dumb tourists that carry food in their backpack and they get eaten by grizzly bears.
Oh, geez.
And then I talked to my dive buddy, Alex, and he said that that he's part of the water rescue, that they rent Jeeps and they rent not jet skis, snowmobiles. And he said they drive onto a lake that's not all that frozen and they go in and they're always having to body recovery. So that's where some of the people are. But there's not that many stupid tourists that go hiking.
Grizzly bears aren't probably eating them. Somebody else is eating or taking them.
Well, and then I found a mountain that there's in the area where they have seen the mountain open up and close again, and that craft are coming in and out. And I found that our government was doing remote viewing experiments. And some of it, they were asking people about, they were giving them areas, and one of them was in Alaska, trying to find out, wanted to know what was inside this building. I don't know if you knew that, but for years, our government was doing a remote viewing project
I
with
believe
people.
that.
And because they wanted to know what was inside a base, or they thought maybe they could control people if they knew what was happening, let's say in the Middle East someplace, they could remote view it and they'd know where the soldiers were. So I even spoke to a couple different people that were involved in that project. So this was back started, I believe, in the early 70s, and they were remote viewing parts of Alaska. I thought, why? Especially in the 70s. So that's a really intriguing place. There's a lot. I don't know if you'd ever seen that TV show, but there's a lot that's going on in Alaska that's just crazy.
There's so much wilderness too. It's like they can.
Well, I mean, so there's a big Alaskan triangle there where, most of it goes on. And then you've got Bermuda, then Japan, the boats and things that disappear. I kind of tracked down a couple other ones too off the East Coast. There's one. I mean, there's one in England. I mean, there are other triangle areas, and why, I don't know. My expertise is more water, but I believe it may have something to do maybe with ley lines or maybe ley lines. The ley lines, from what I understand, there's electromagnetic fields involved with ley lines, and there's people that do research in that.
I have one last question before I have to let you go. We're in we're not New Orleans. The show, the broadcast is going to New Orleans, Henderson Point. I have a question about this part of the time. You probably don't. Maybe you've heard it in your area. There's been these sounds in the middle of the night, like a trumpet, like a continuous sound. Have you heard anything like that in your area?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any idea what it could be?
I have no idea. I didn't even know the sounds existed. And we had a UFO flap in Missouri, mostly in the starting in, I guess, fall of 2011, going into 2012. August 5th of 2011, my husband and I were sleeping 3:10 in the morning, and we heard this unbelievable, it was bang, 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 loud. Now, my husband's deaf in one ear, and it woke him up. He jumped straight up, and he's running circles. What is that? Well, we thought it was our whirlpool tub outside, our hot tub.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went running down the stairs for that. I went out on the deck, and it wasn't that. You could tell the sound was coming from about 60 degrees in the sky, and it was kind of an overcast, kind of hazy sky. And it went from that to the sound. The only way to describe it is, you've seen War of the Worlds with Keanu Reeves, and when that machine comes up from underground, it makes that really weird sound.
Mm-hmm.
That sound was next. And I went, oh my gosh. All the lights in our court and the subdivision on the other side came out. People were out on their decks and everybody was looking up. I grabbed my recorder, and just as I did, the sound changed to like almost underwater, like, blah, 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 blah. And I got about 2 minutes of that. And then it just stopped. I mean, not died down, just flat out stopped. I called 911. It was flooded. The phone lines flooded. I then talked to the next morning, a police officer friend of ours. He gave me a private number to dispatch. Dispatch told me, the gal says, well, when I came on this morning, they told me to say it was the sewer plant down the road. She said,
he told you to say
the sound. And she said, but what's really weird is the sewer plant, I believe, is 6 miles as the crow flies from my house, even farther by road. And she said all the reports were within a quarter of a mile. I went over to the sewer plant, and it's August. People were outside barbecuing because this happened on a Sunday. I mean, early Sunday morning. They're out barbecuing Sunday afternoon. No one heard anything. And I could see the sewer plant. Nobody heard anything. I never could find out what that was.
Nobody knows what it is.
The trumpets of Gabriel, they call it, or something like that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I found the exact same sound. I did an algorithm on it. And in Canada, they ended up all over the world. Linda Moulton Howe and Jaime Mousson did a whole presentation on the sounds.
I would love to know what it is. No one knows what it is.
It sounded almost interdimensional.
It could be the Earth itself.
Well, I thought
it's loud.
You know, and I was going to take off on my Jeep, and my husband said, "Where are you going to go? I mean, what are you going to look for?" And I thought, I don't.
Something's up there. Something's going on.
That's funny.
I think it was either I had someone remote view it. They thought it was a cloaked ship. And I had someone else that said that they thought it was interdimensional, that there was like a riff or something, and that we were hearing sounds from another dimension.
Maybe.
That's possible.
Well, we're going to have to leave it here right now, Debbie. So where can someone get your book when it comes out?
It will be available on MUFON Store, Amazon, my website that Margie K is putting up for me, DebbieDiver.com. It's the alien colonization of Earth's waterways.
Wow. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Pat,
we'll have you back on when we have more time. We're going to have a bigger show. So next week's our big one. So
thank you.
From now on. Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Oh, that was a really good show. We learned a lot from her.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so
it was very much.
We can discuss. Yes,
trying to attack me.
I'm sorry, but keep an ear on that trumpet sound because it was in Western Pennsylvania and it was in the middle of the night and it's continuous. Sounds like a trumpet horn. It's a continuous, like a siren that keeps going.
You know what? What if it is like the Earth? You know, because scientists and all that have been able to take sounds from like Saturn and everything, and it just sounds real creepy, like
or it could be Gabriel's trumpet. You never know. Could be. We could be.
True.
We're in the it's really bad out there, so you never know. It could be.
Yeah.
But we have one more minute, but I can't wait till next week. So we don't have to rush and we can talk. Right. And next week is going to be after death experiences with oh gosh, I can't remember. Embracing the Light is the title. We'll just leave it at that. But we're going to go ahead and we'll do it and see what happens.
August 10th.
August 10th next week. And then the 17th we're going to do is called Are You Ready? We're going to try to get someone on the show that's getting a prepper for Ends of Times, and he's going to help us get what do we need? When the grid goes down, what do we need? Because it's going to happen. One of these cyber attacks is going to be the grid. So just be prepared. Okay, guys, we'll see you next week. I'm just going to go ahead and play our ending. So we'll see you next week. And thanks again for tuning on to Chasing Prophecy.
Go hunt.